On an ordinary day in exile, among captives who had long stopped hoping, the sky above Ezekiel was ripped wide open. The prophet was not praying in a temple, not fasting on a holy mountain. He was simply by the riverbank, when eternity invaded time. The heavens didn't open gently, nor with a whisper. They burst with force, like a storm too great for the world to contain. A whirlwind came from the north, wrapped in clouds and fire, swirling with light and purpose, a chariot of glory on the move. Inside the whirlwind, Ezekiel saw something that would burn into his soul forever. Beings that defied human description. 4 living creatures stepped from the fire, each one like a man, but not fully, for they bore the weight of heaven's mystery. Each creature had 4 faces: human, lion, ox, and eagle, symbols not of chaos but of divine design and spiritual perfection. Their legs were straight and strong, feet like polished bronze, gleaming with the light of judgment and holiness. With 4 wings, they moved without turning, forward, backward, any direction, obedient not to space, but to the spirit within them. The wings touched one another, linking the creatures into one heavenly unit, bound by purpose and divine order. Beneath their wings, human hands reached out, a sign that these beings were not mere ideas, they carried power to act. The fire between them was alive, flickering with lightning, consuming nothing, revealing everything, holy and dangerous. They moved like flashes of lightning, swift, unbound by weight, evidence that heavens will needs no delay. Then Ezekiel's eyes were drawn downward, and he saw what no prophet before him had ever recorded: wheels. Not ordinary wheels, but wheels within wheels, perfectly joined, able to move in every direction without turning. Each wheel was beside one of the creatures, moving with them, rising with them, stopping with them, connected like breath to body. And these wheels were not dead mechanisms. They were alive, their rims covered with countless eyes that never blinked. The spirit of the living creatures was inside the wheels. They were not tools, they were living instruments of divine glory. Every eye on every wheel burned with awareness, scanning all of existence. Past, present, and future lay naked before them. When the creatures moved, the wheels moved. When the creatures rose, the wheels rose, for the spirit of life was shared. This was not a hallucination, not a symbolic dream. It was raw glory, breaking into the fallen world through the vision of a captive priest. And above it all, above the creatures, above the wheels, was something like a sea of crystal, a firmament, unshakable and glowing. Upon that expanse came the sound of wings, like waterfalls, like armies marching, like glory announcing its arrival. Ezekiel had not been warned. He had not asked. But now he stood as a witness to the throne of God on the move. What he saw was not still, not passive. It moved, it advanced, it carried the presence of God across borders and beyond temples. In exile, where many thought God had been left behind, his throne was spinning through fire and lightning, fully alive. And Ezekiel, once a priest with no altar, became the man who saw the living wheels of heaven come to earth. Ezekiel stood frozen, not by fear alone, but by awe, the kind that silences every question and brings a man to his knees. Before him were not mere visions, but realities too vast for words, creatures that felt the spirit and wheels that watched everything. These wheels, called Ophanim, were not silent ornaments, nor symbols on a scroll, but living manifestations of divine awareness. They spun without turning, moved without hesitation, responded without delay, each one filled with an intelligence not their own. The rims of the wheels were covered in eyes, endless, searching, knowing eyes, that looked in every direction at once. These were not decorations, they were declarations. Nothing was hidden. Nothing escaped the vision of the God who sees all. Ezekiel realized this was not just glory, it was government. It was how the throne of God moved across the earth. The creatures and wheels did not act on their own. They moved as one, as if joined by invisible breath, guided by a higher will. When the creatures rose from the earth, the wheels rose with them. When the Spirit moved, they all obeyed without resistance. These were not angels of song, nor messengers with scrolls. These were the structure of the throne itself, living, burning, knowing. The Ophanim did not speak, yet they communicated more than words ever could: purpose, vigilance, power, and eternity. In them, Ezekiel saw not only movement but precision. No spin was random, no direction wasted. All was intentional. They did not dominate the living creatures, nor follow behind like slaves. They moved side by side, bound by shared spirit. Every direction they traveled revealed a side of God's will, a God who does not wait in one place, but advances with fire. The form of a wheel was no accident. Circles speak of endlessness, of time folded into purpose, of paths that always return. Unlike human logic, which demands beginnings and endings, the wheel reveals the divine, always in motion, never surprised. With every spin, the Ophanim whispered a silent truth. God is never late, never still, never absent. He sees, he acts, he reigns. And yet, for all their awe, the wheels were not worshipped. They pointed to something greater, to the one who sat above it all. In later Jewish writings, the Ophanim would be named among the highest orders of heaven, not because of rank, but proximity. The seraphim burn, the cherubim guard, but the Ophanim move, spinning the glory of God through space and spirit. They are not leaders, yet everything follows them. They are not preachers, yet their movement is a sermon without a word. Ezekiel didn't see them in a holy temple, nor at an altar. He saw them in a foreign land, among ruins, far from what was once sacred. That, perhaps, is the deepest mystery. The throne did not remain behind. It came to the exiles. It came to the broken. The wheels moved not just through heaven, but into suffering, into lost places, into the silence where people thought God had left. Every eye on every wheel said otherwise. God had not abandoned his people. He had arrived before they even knew to look. The eyes did not sleep. They did not miss injustice. They did not ignore pain. They saw it all, and they carried divine intent. This vision was not just a display of power, it was a reminder. The throne of God moves where it is needed most. And in this truth, Ezekiel understood his calling. He had not just seen the wheels. He had been summoned by the throne itself. The exile was not an ending. It was a stage upon which God would reveal glory in a way Israel had never known before. And through the spinning wheels and fiery beings, a new kind of presence began to shine, one that could not be caged by place or time. The wheels moved, the creatures surged like living flame, but all of it pointed upward, toward something even greater above. Ezekiel's eyes followed the motion, drawn past fire and lightning, beyond the spinning wheels and the blazing wings. What he saw next silenced even the storm in his chest, for above the creatures stretched a firmament like shining crystal. It was not sky, not glass, not cloud. It was something unearthly, clear as ice, solid as judgment, and bright with divine glory. The expanse was not empty. It was a platform, a foundation for something higher, something that ruled even the living wheels. From above that crystal sea, Ezekiel heard a sound, a roar like the voice of many waters, like the marching of heaven's armies. The sound came from the wings of the living creatures when they moved, and when they stood still, a voice echoed from above. The wings themselves formed a canopy beneath the firmament, touching one another in reverent alignment, covering their bodies in awe. But then Ezekiel looked even higher, and what he saw next shattered every thought he had ever held about God's presence. Above the firmament, there was something like a throne, deep blue, radiant, burning like sapphire lit from within. It was not carved. It was not built. It existed in its own right, alive, terrifying, and unshakably majestic. And on that throne, seated in absolute command, was the appearance of a man, no ordinary man, but a being of fire. From the waist up, he glowed like burning metal, flame wrapped in brilliance, light radiating in every direction. From the waist down, he looked like fire encased in light, judgment and holiness mingled in a form that words cannot contain. Surrounding him was brightness like a rainbow in the clouds on a rainy day, a sign of mercy encircling unapproachable glory. This was not a dream, not a metaphor. It was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord, as Ezekiel later said. The man of fire did not speak, yet his presence thundered louder than armies. He sat, not pacing, not struggling, enthroned. The living creatures did not look directly at him. The Ophanim did not rise to meet him. All was reverent stillness. The throne did not shake, for no enemy could touch it. The fire did not consume, for it was holy, not destructive. Ezekiel realized he was not seeing just a vision, he was witnessing the cosmic center of reality, and it had come near. The exile had not stopped God's throne. The destruction of the temple had not removed his reign. The wheels still turned, and the throne moved not just through heaven, but into suffering, into nations, into broken places that felt forgotten. This was the God who sees all through the eyes on the wheels, who moves through lightning and fire, but who sits in peace. He is not overwhelmed. He is not panicked. His eyes are not blind to the earth. He reigns with perfect clarity. And now Ezekiel, a man in captivity, found himself chosen to see what prophets and priests before him had never seen. He did not understand it all, but understanding was not required. What was required was surrender to the weight of glory. He fell on his face, not as an act of drama, but as the only possible response when earth touches heaven. Ezekiel's calling began here, not with a word, but with a vision. Not with a message, but with an encounter that rewrote his soul. The God who reigns was not far away. He had drawn near, on wheels, with eyes, with wings, with fire, with purpose. And when he comes like this, everything changes. Not just the prophet, but the people, the land, and even time itself. Ezekiel lay face down, trembling, not from fear of judgment, but from the sheer weight of glory that pressed into his bones. He had seen what few eyes ever beheld, the throne of God not in a temple, but in the dust of exile, among the broken and forgotten. In the fire and lightning, among the living creatures and the spinning wheels, he witnessed a truth deeper than doctrine. God's throne does not remain where men expect it. It moves. It advances. It arrives in unexpected places with unstoppable purpose. The Ophanim, the living wheels, were not merely structures. They were messengers without voices, declaring that nothing is outside God's reach. Covered in eyes, they saw more than events. They saw hearts. They knew pain, rebellion, injustice, and still, they turned forward. Every eye watched in perfect clarity. Past, present, future, all held together in the unshaken gaze of the Almighty. The wheels did not grow tired. The creatures did not falter. The throne did not pause. It moved, pulsing with holy purpose. For the Spirit was in the creatures, and the Spirit was in the wheels, and the Spirit moved as it willed, unstoppable, silent, sovereign. What Ezekiel witnessed was not God coming down. It was God revealing he had never left. The exile, the ruins, the silence, it was not abandonment. It was preparation for a revelation that could only come through fire. Ezekiel was not in the temple, but he had seen the throne. He was not wearing priestly garments, but he had entered the holy. No altar burned incense, yet the fire of heaven had surrounded him. No choir sang, but the wings roared like oceans. And in that moment, Ezekiel understood, the temple may have fallen, but the glory had not. God was not stationary. He rides with wheels. He burns with fire. He sees with endless eyes. He speaks through movement, not always through words. The Ophanim do not chant, do not fight, do not deliver messages. They reveal the direction of God himself. They do not command, but they carry. They do not lead, but they never hesitate. They turn with the Spirit and nowhere else. Their circular form is not just design, it is testimony. What God begins, he will complete. His paths are eternal, never ending. Ezekiel would later prophesy doom and hope, judgment and restoration, but his first calling was not to speak. It was to see. He had to witness glory before he could proclaim it. He had to fall before he could rise. He had to burn before he could carry light. And what he saw still speaks to us. When we think God has stopped moving, the wheels are still spinning. When we believe heaven is silent, the wings are still stirring. When we feel forgotten, the eyes still see. In every place of exile, the throne draws near, not to be comfortable, but to command. Not to be explained, but to be known. The vision of the Ophanim is not a myth or mystery for scholars, it is a message for the broken. God has not abandoned the world. His throne is not trapped in stained glass or golden temples. It rolls through suffering, lightning, and time. And when his Spirit moves, nothing stands still, not even despair, not even death. Ezekiel would spend the rest of his life unpacking what he saw that day, but the first truth was enough: God is in motion. The creatures may be terrifying, the wheels overwhelming, the fire too bright, but all of it proclaims one thing: He reigns. The Ophanim are not angels of comfort. They are the engines of heaven's throne, alive with divine will, never silent, never still. And even now, when the world grows dark and the temple seems far, the message remains: watch the skies, for the wheels are turning. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and share this powerful story.